It was supposed to be the happiest day of my life, my birthday. I had everything planned, from the decorations to the cake, and all I wanted was to spend the evening with my husband, Jake. But when he came home, he wasn't alone. Standing next to him was Sophia, my best friend. What I didn't expect was for that moment to shatter everything I thought I knew. As the truth unfolded, I was forced to confront a betrayal that would change my life forever. What was I supposed to do now? Could I ever trust them again? It was my birthday, the one day a year that I looked forward to more than anything. I had spent the entire week preparing for the evening. I decorated the living room with balloons, set the table with candles, and even baked my favorite cake, making sure everything was perfect. Jake, my husband, had promised me he would come home early so we could enjoy a quiet evening together. Just the two of us. It was supposed to be a day of celebration, a time to reconnect after weeks of busy schedule. As the afternoon passed, I checked my phone several times, expecting a text from him. He had messaged earlier saying he was running a bit late, but that was typical. I didn't mind. He always had work to finish up, but it wasn't unusual for him to make up for it by planning something special when he finally got home. The waiting, though, felt like an eternity. I was getting anxious, but tried to shake it off. It was my day, and I wasn't going to let anything ruin it. The door finally opened, and I smiled, expecting to see Jake walk through. But instead, my smile quickly faded when I saw him standing at the threshold with none other than Sophia, my best friend. At first, I thought I was imagining things. Was she visiting us? I felt a knot tighten in my stomach, but I pushed it aside, thinking it must be a coincidence. "Hey, you two are here early," I said, trying to sound cheerful, though my voice cracked just a little. Jake stepped inside, looking down at his feet, while Sophia lingered behind him, her eyes downcast. "Hi," Sophia said, her voice barely audible, avoiding my gaze. I couldn't help but notice how she seemed a little uncomfortable. "Is everything okay?" I asked, a sense of unease creeping in. My instinct told me that something wasn't right, but I couldn't pinpoint exactly what it was. Jake looked at me, his face clouded with guilt. He hesitated, then finally spoke, his voice soft but shaky. We need to talk," he said. He didn't look like himself. There was a look in his eyes that I had never seen before, a mixture of fear and regret. My heart began to race, my stomach flipping as I braced myself for something I couldn't yet understand. Sophia stepped forward, but before she could say anything, Jake continued. I've made a huge mistake," he said, his voice trembling. It's about me and Sophia." I froze, not understanding at first. My mind tried to piece together what he meant, but it didn't make sense. My heart skipped a beat as I looked at Sophia, whose face was pale and strained. "What do you mean?" My voice was barely above a whisper, each word feeling like a weight on my chest. It was as if I knew the answer, but I couldn't bear to hear it. Jake's eyes shifted uncomfortably between me and Sophia before he spoke again. "I've been seeing Sophia for a while now," he admitted, his voice low and filled with regret. "I never wanted to hurt you, Em. This wasn't supposed to happen, but it did. And I'm sorry, I really am." The room spun. I felt like the floor had been ripped from under me. I looked from Jake to Sophia, trying to make sense of what was happening. My best friend, my husband, together? What are you saying?" I whispered, my hands trembling. "You've been seeing her? Behind my back?" Jake nodded slowly, his face full of shame. I felt something break inside me, something I couldn't fix. I stared at Sophia, and for the first time I felt betrayed by her more than anyone else. My mind raced, but I couldn't grasp the reality of what they were telling me. "It wasn't planned, Em," Jake continued, his words rushed. "It just happened. I was confused, and I made a mistake. I don't know how to make it right, but I'm so sorry." Sophia didn't say anything. She just stood there, her head down, as if she couldn't look me in the eye. I stumbled back, unable to process what they had just confessed. "You've been seeing her for how long?" I could barely form the question. Jake's silence was all the answer I needed. Tears welled up in my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. I wasn't going to cry in front of them. I turned away, stepping into the kitchen, trying to catch my breath. "I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear any more apologies," I said, my voice shaking with anger. "I need you both to leave, now." Jake and Sophia stood in the doorway, frozen. Neither of them moved. but I couldn't look at them anymore. Not after what they had done. Not after the betrayal they had just laid bare. And just like that, my birthday, the one day I had been looking forward to, was over. The love I thought I knew had turned into something unrecognizable. This moment would mark the beginning of a path I wasn't prepared for, one that would challenge everything I believed about trust, love, and betrayal. But at that moment, I was too numb to think about what came next. Part 2. The aftermath. The days after that night felt like a blur. The shock of Jake's betrayal was too much for me to handle. It was hard to focus on anything. My birthday, a day I had been so excited about, was nothing more than a distant memory, overshadowed by the pain of what I had just learned. I couldn't understand how everything had changed so quickly. How the man I had married, the person I trusted most, could do something like this. I avoided Jake and Sophia as much as possible in the days that followed. Jake had tried to reach out to me several times, calling, texting, even showing up at the door, but I couldn't bring myself to face him. The last thing I wanted was to hear his apologies. I didn't want to hear how sorry he was, how much he regretted it. Words meant nothing to me at that moment. How could they? His actions had already spoken louder than anything he could say. It was the silence that hurt the most. Not just the quiet of my house, but the silence that hung between us. It was as if nothing could be said to undo what had already been done. I had spent so many nights crying, replaying everything in my mind, from the moment Jake walked through the door with Sophia to the confession that shattered my world. How long had this been going on? How could I have been so blind? I had known Sophia for years. She was my closest friend, the one person I had trusted with everything. I had never once questioned her loyalty. And now, not only had she betrayed me, but she had also become a part of the very thing that destroyed everything I thought I knew about my marriage. The two people I trusted most in the world had betrayed me in the most unimaginable way. On the 4th day after the confrontation, I found myself sitting on the couch, staring at my phone, contemplating whether or not I should reach out to Jake. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the story. More than what he had told me. He had been so quick to apologize, so eager to explain, but I still didn't feel like I had the full truth. I had to know. I couldn't move forward without understanding exactly what had happened between them. I wasn't going to give Jake a chance to come back without getting the answers I deserved. I called Jake's number, my heart pounding in my chest. The phone rang several times before he picked up. Jake's voice was shaky, like he had been waiting for this call. Please, just give me a chance to explain. I swallowed hard, the lump in my throat making it difficult to speak. I need to know, Jake, I said, my voice steady but trembling with anger. What exactly happened between you and Sophia? There was a long pause on the other end. I could feel the tension in the silence. It wasn't supposed to happen, he finally said, his voice breaking. We got close, too close. It was a mistake. But it didn't mean anything. I never wanted to hurt you. I clenched my fists, biting my lip to stop myself from crying. A mistake? I repeated, the word tasting bitter on my tongue. How could you call it a mistake? You chose her. You chose her over me. Jake was silent for a long time. When he spoke again, his voice was barely a whisper. I never thought I could hurt you like this. I've been so selfish. I should have never let it go this far. The words barely made sense to me. I should have never let it go this far. They were just words, empty words, and none of them changed the fact that he had broken my trust. I felt a wave of nausea wash over me as I listened to him. I don't want your apology, Jake. I need you to leave me alone. I don't know how I'm supposed to ever trust you again. Before he could say anything more, I hung up. My hands shook as I set the phone down. The pain in my chest was suffocating, and I had no idea how to make you stop. It wasn't just about the betrayal. It was about the years of trust that had been shattered in an instant. The days that followed were filled with a haunting silence. Jake kept trying to reach out, but I avoided his calls. Sophia had stopped messaging me as well. It was clear she didn't know how to face me, and I wasn't sure if I ever wanted to speak to her again. I didn't know how I was supposed to move forward from here. Could I ever trust either of them again? Could I ever forgive them? And most importantly, did I even want to? I spent my days in a daze, questioning everything. The anger I felt was overwhelming, but so was the sadness. And in the midst of all the chaos, one thing became clear. I couldn't keep living in this limbo. I needed answers, but more than that, I needed closure. I wasn't sure what was going to happen next, but I knew I couldn't go on like this. The days seemed to drag on in the aftermath of everything that had happened. I couldn't get Jake's words out of my mind. His apologies, his desperate pleas, none of them made the pain go away. I spent countless nights lying awake, tossing and turning, replaying that horrible night over and over. His confession, Sophia's silence. I still couldn't understand how it all happened, why he chose her. Why now? Then on the 5th day it came, a knock on the door. I hesitated. My heart skipped a beat, and my breath caught in my throat. It was him, Jake. I could tell by the way the knock echoed in the empty silence of the house. It wasn't just a casual visit. He had come to talk. He needed to explain, again. I had been avoiding him for days, but now there was no escaping it. I wasn't ready. I didn't want to face him. But I also couldn't keep living in this limbo, constantly wondering what else he hadn't told me. I opened the door slowly, and there he was, standing in front of me, looking like a man who had been through hell. His eyes were red, his face drawn and tired. The guilt was written all over him, but so was the desperation. I couldn't look at him without feeling the rush of anger and hurt. He was the last person I wanted to see, but also the only person who could possibly give me the answers I desperately needed. "Emily?" His voice was hoarse, barely a whisper. "I know you don't want to hear from me. I know I've hurt you beyond measure, but I need you to hear me out. Please." I stepped back, unsure of what to say, unsure of what I even wanted to hear. Could I bear to hear his explanations, his justifications for what he had done? Could I even stand to listen to him anymore? "Jake," I said, my voice colder than I had ever meant it to be, "I don't know what to say to you. I don't even know if I want to hear your excuses anymore. I just want the truth." His face crumpled as he stood there, struggling to find the right words. "It wasn't supposed to happen like this, Em. I never meant to hurt you. I never wanted to lose you, but I was selfish. And I took everything for granted." I clenched my fists, fighting the overwhelming urge to scream. "You took everything for granted? And what about me, Jake? What about the years we've spent together, the trust we had? What about our marriage?" Jake looked down, unable to meet my eyes. I was confused. I made a huge mistake. Sophia and we got close. It wasn't something I planned, but it happened. I never thought it would go this far, and now I'm paying the price. The words sounded so empty, like something he had rehearsed in his mind, but they meant nothing. I couldn't feel anything but the bitterness that was slowly consuming me. I wanted to believe that he was truly sorry, that he regretted what he had done, but everything inside me screamed that I was just another one of his mistakes. The same mistakes that had been covered up by apologies, by guilt. "You chose her over me, Jake?" My voice broke. "You betrayed me. You betrayed everything we had. I don't know if I can ever get past this. I don't know if I want to." He took a step closer, but I took one back, needing space, needing time. "Please, Emily, I love you. I always have. I made a mistake, a huge mistake, and I need to prove to you that I can be better. I'm asking for your forgiveness, for a chance to make things right." "You want forgiveness?" I asked, the anger rising in my chest. "Jake, you don't deserve forgiveness. Not yet. You don't even deserve my trust. I can't just forgive you like that. Not when you've broken me like this." The silence between us was suffocating. He stood there, his expression pained, and I stood there, my heart shattering all over again. The man who had promised to love me, to honor me, had destroyed everything in one selfish act. And here he was, asking for another chance, asking for forgiveness. But at what cost? "I need time, Jake. I need time to think, to process this. But I can't just forgive you and pretend like everything is fine," I whispered, trying to hold back the tears that threatened to overwhelm me. "I need to figure out if I can even look at you the same way again." Jake nodded slowly, his eyes filled with tears. "I'll wait, Emily. I'll wait as long as it takes. But I need you to know that I'm truly sorry. I'll do whatever it takes to make things right." And with that, he turned and walked out the door, leaving me standing there alone once more. The weight of his absence felt heavier than ever. My mind was a whirlwind of conflicting emotions, confusion, pain, anger, and something else that I couldn't quite name. The question that lingered in my mind as I closed the door behind him was simple, yet devastating. Could I ever trust him again? And more importantly, did I even want to? I stood there on the balcony, my heart racing, as my husband approached. His presence felt suffocating, like the walls were closing in around me. He had no idea what I had overheard, no idea about the message I had just received, yet he acted as though nothing had changed, as if nothing had shattered between us in the last few minutes. "Are you all right?" he asked again, his voice calm, almost too calm for someone who had just been caught in a lie. His tone seemed detached, like he was speaking to a stranger rather than his wife. I turned to face him, forcing myself to breathe, to keep my voice steady, but inside, I was falling apart. "You think you can just act like nothing's happened?" I replied, my words sharp. "Like you haven't been lying to me, betraying me, in front of my eyes?" His face remained unchanged. He wasn't surprised by my anger, didn't seem fazed by my pain. He just looked at me with that familiar, tired expression. "It's not what you think." I shook my head, unable to comprehend how he could still say that. "Not what I think?" I had heard it with my own ears. Everything's going according to plan. I could still hear her voice echoing in my mind. It was clear now. This wasn't just some misunderstanding or mistake. He had planned this, and I had been living in the dark for far too long. I crossed my arms, trying to maintain some semblance of control. "Then tell me what's going on, because I don't understand anymore. What exactly is this plan you've been working on?" He hesitated. For the first time since I had caught him, I saw a flicker of doubt in his eyes. He opened his mouth to say something, but the words didn't come out. Instead, he looked away, as if searching for a way to explain himself without actually having to face the truth. I wasn't going to let him off that easy. "You don't get to just sweep this under the rug, not this time." My voice was trembling now, but I couldn't stop myself. The anger was rising in me, and with it the overwhelming sense of betrayal. I deserve to know what's going on. I deserve the truth. His shoulders slumped slightly, and for a brief moment I thought he might finally admit everything. Maybe he would confess the affair, tell me everything I needed to know to end this twisted nightmare. But instead, he closed his eyes, sighed, and when he opened them again, there was something cold in his gaze. "I don't know how to say this, but I've already made my decision," he said softly. "I don't think this marriage is working anymore." His words hit me like a slap. The air seemed to leave my lungs, and for a moment, I couldn't move, couldn't speak. All of the years we had spent together, all of the love and memories now reduced to a cold admission of finality. It was as if he had already made peace with the idea of ending everything between us, and I was just the last person to know. "You've already made your decision?" I repeated, my voice barely a whisper. "So that's it? After everything we've built together? You're just going to walk away?" He didn't answer. He didn't need to. The look in his eyes told me everything. He had already made up his mind. He had already chosen her, chosen a life without me, without our family. I felt a knot form in my throat and my chest tightened. The world around me seemed to blur, and for a moment I thought I might suffocate under the weight of it all. But somehow I managed to keep my composure. I refused to let him see me break. Not now. Not when I had finally started to see things for what they really were. "So that's it?" I asked, my voice steady, though my heart was shattering. "You're just gonna throw away everything we've had? The kids, the life we've built?" He looked at me again, and this time I saw a flash of something. Regret, perhaps, or maybe guilt, but it was fleeting. "I never wanted it to end like this," he said softly, almost as if he was trying to comfort me. "But I think we both know it's been falling apart for a long time." I felt a wave of nausea. Falling apart? He had been planning this. All along, while I had been here thinking everything was fine, he had already checked out. He had already decided who he wanted to be with. "I think it's time for both of us to move on," he added, his voice cold, like the finality of his words had already settled in his heart. I wanted to scream at him, to make him understand the devastation he had caused. But I didn't. Instead, I turned away, my eyes brimming with tears I refused to let fall. I couldn't cry in front of him. Not after everything he had done, not after the lies, the betrayal, the cold indifference he had shown me. "I'm done," I whispered, more to myself than to him. "I won't be a part of this anymore." I turned and walked away, leaving him standing there, alone. It was over. The days after finding the photos and the note felt like an eternity. I couldn't stop thinking about the words Jake had written to Sophia. The confession, the love, the deceit, it all hung over me like a dark cloud. I had been walking around in a haze, replaying everything in my head, trying to make sense of it. How could I have been so blind? How could I have trusted them both? The betrayal stung more than anything I had ever felt. That night, I sat alone in the living room, staring at the pictures Jake had taken with Sophia, their smiles in the photos mocking the love I thought I had. The silence in the house felt suffocating, like it was pressing in on me, reminding me of the betrayal I couldn't escape. I needed to confront Jake. I needed to hear him admit everything, even though I knew it wouldn't change the truth. I hadn't heard from him since I found the evidence. He had sent a couple of texts, but I couldn't bring myself to reply. I couldn't look at him without seeing the lies in his eyes, without hearing the words that had shattered everything. I knew he was waiting for a chance to explain, to beg for forgiveness, but I couldn't bring myself to let him back in so easily. I had already given him that chance, and he had squandered it. The phone buzzed, interrupting my thoughts. It was a message from Jake. My heart skipped a beat, and I hesitated before opening it. It was short, but the desperation in his words was clear. "Emily, please, I can't live with myself knowing how much I've hurt you. I'm begging you to let me explain. Let's meet." I stared at the message, my hands trembling. Part of me wanted to ignore him, to let him wallow in his guilt, but the other part of me, the part that still loved him, wanted to hear him out, to see if he could make me believe that his words meant something. But I knew it was a fool's hope. The truth was clear, and it was ugly. I sighed, feeling my stomach churn with anxiety. I needed to make a decision, and I needed to make it now. I couldn't keep living in this limbo, stuck between the love I once had for Jake and the betrayal I had just uncovered. The question was, could I ever trust him again? Could I forgive him? And if I couldn't, what did that mean for us? I sent a reply, "Fine, we can meet, but don't expect me to forgive you just like that." The next day, Jake arrived at the cafe we had agreed on. He was waiting at a corner table, his face pale and drawn. His eyes were bloodshot, like he hadn't slept in days. As soon as I walked in, he stood up, looking relieved but nervous at the same time. There was a moment of silence between us, and then he spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "I'm so sorry, Em," he said, his voice breaking. "I never wanted to hurt you. I was selfish, and I made a huge mistake. I know I can't fix this, but I'm begging you to listen to me." The phone buzzed, interrupting my thoughts. It was a message from Jake. My heart skipped a beat, and I hesitated before opening it. It was short, but the desperation in his words was clear. "Emily, please, I can't live with myself knowing how much I've hurt you. I'm begging you to let me explain. Let's meet." I stared at the message, my hands trembling. Part of me wanted to ignore him, to let him wallow in his guilt, but the other part of me, the part that still loved him, wanted to hear him out, to see if he could make me believe that his words meant something. But I knew it was a fool's hope. The truth was clear, and it was ugly. I sighed, feeling my stomach churn with anxiety. I needed to make a decision, and I needed to make it now. I couldn't keep living in this limbo, stuck between the love I once had for Jake and the betrayal I had just uncovered. The question was, could I ever trust him again? Could I forgive him? And if I couldn't, what did that mean for us? I sent a reply, "Fine, we can meet, but don't expect me to forgive you just like that." The next day, Jake arrived at the cafe we had agreed on. He was waiting at a corner table, his face pale and drawn. His eyes were bloodshot, like he hadn't slept in days. As soon as I walked in, he stood up, looking relieved but nervous at the same time. There was a moment of silence between us, and then he spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "I'm so sorry, Em," he said, his voice breaking. "I never wanted to hurt you. I was selfish, and I made a huge mistake. I know I can't fix this, but I'm begging you to listen to me." I sat down across from him, folding my arms. I wasn't gonna make this easy for him. I needed to hear him say everything to make sure there were no more lies left between us. Go on, I said, my tone cold. Jake took a deep breath, trying to collect himself. I was stupid, I know. Sophia and I got close, but I never meant for it to go this far. I was confused about everything, about us, about what I wanted. I didn't know how to deal with it, and I let it spiral out of control. How long has this been going on? I asked, my voice tight with barely controlled rage. How long were you lying to me? Jake flinched at the question. It started a while ago, before everything got so messed up. I didn't know what to do, Em. I didn't know how to handle it, and I didn't want to hurt you, but I ended up doing exactly that. The words felt hollow. The more he spoke, the less sense it made. I don't know if I can believe you anymore, I said quietly, the weight of my own words hitting me. You've been lying to me this whole time. You've been with her, planning this, and now you expect me to just forgive you? Jake looked desperate, his eyes pleading. I never wanted to hurt you. I swear I didn't mean for it to happen like this. But I love you, Emily. I always have. I can't imagine my life without you. Please, I'll do anything to fix this. I felt the familiar tug in my chest, the ache that came from the love I had once shared with him. But there was also something else, something darker. Something that told me that forgiveness might never come, that we might never get back what we had. I stood up, pushing my chair back with a sudden motion. Jake, I can't keep doing this. I don't know if I can ever trust you again. I don't even know if I want to. His face fell, the hope draining from his eyes. Em, please, I'm sorry. I'll do whatever it takes. But I couldn't hear it anymore. I couldn't keep listening to the same words, the same apologies. I had to make a choice, for myself. I turned and walked away, not looking back. This was the end of the road. And even though it broke me to walk away from the man I loved, I knew it was the only way to truly move forward.